Straight off our last excursion to 2265's Drazana station, we learned that the Davidians are using Driffen's Comet to swamp the sector in triolic radiation, softening the realms between phases and allowing them to feed off the inhabitants. With the current levels of triolic saturation, the entire contents of this sector is at risk of being phased into the Davidians' existence, and we'd lose everyone in it. Franklin Drake of Section 31 has cryptically hinted that he has a method of sending the USS Daring back in time to that year in order to provide us with enough firepower to destroy the Comet in the past, thus preventing the time-skipping Davidians from ever establishing their connection in 2409. To accomplish this, he has us report to the Bepi 113 system, just at the border of the neighbouring sector, and by all accounts, it's a completely unremarkable system, but one that nonetheless prohibits further scanning. Upon entering this system, Drake contacts us and lets us in on a little Section 31 secret. He says Section 31 has gone through a lot of lengths to hide this system and keep it off the charts and out of the way. This is because it's an ideal star for slingshot time travel. This dangerous technique was first discovered in 2267 by accident by the USS Enterprise, and then subsequently used several times after to visit the past. Earth's own sun is also a perfect candidate for this manoeuvre, and it's also the same system as Starfleet and the Temporal Investigation Bureau, so it's rarely used for that purpose. For this reason, Section 31 located a prime candidate and have been keeping it to themselves for who knows how long, and he admits they've been using it to fix issues that require creative solutions. During the time he's been gone out of contact with us, Drake had the calculations prepared, as well as another surprise. He had agents install a holo projector on the Daring to mask its appearance as a Klingon D7 of 2265. He assures us that this should be adequate camouflage for us to destroy the Comet in peace. Now, all that is required is to fly my ship around the sun at warp speeds. Alright, the course is laid in and the Daring under sensor and visual disguise. Hey, didn't Kirk do this in an actual Klingon ship in 2286 to rescue some whales? Right, well, we need to make sure that these calculations are correct. The ship's mass, speed, trajectory, size of the star, gravity, timing, everything affects the outcome. Well, it's too late to have second thoughts about it now. With each milestone we pass, the ship accelerates until at its fastest it catapults away from the star, punching a hole in time as warp theory has a fit and we're gone. We exit warp at Drozana and it looks a lot cleaner. I think Drake didn't get us all killed. Looks like it worked. Although I may have spoken too soon. The USS Reuben James, a Constitution-class starship, contacts us immediately as we enter.
Attention, unidentified ship. I am Commodore Jacob Ross, in command of the USS Reuben James. We have been searching for a Klingon vessel reported to have attacked a colony in the Gliese system. You fit the description of the ship we are looking for. Unless you can prove you are not, we will take immediate action.
Despite his offering to hear us out, he closes the channel, refuses to answer, and arms weapons. He's surely bluffing. Although Klingon Federation tensions are high at this time period, I doubt he'd fire on us unless we made a hostile move. We haven't even armed ourselves yet. Although, raise shields, just to be safe.
Warning, ship is under attack.
What is Commodore Ross doing? Not even a warning shot? As frustrating as this is, we cannot destroy that ship. It could have unforeseen consequences. Of course, fortunately for us, however, we only look like an antique 23rd century Klingon D7 and are in fact a fully armed and operational 25th century Starfleet cruiser. It takes us all of 30 seconds to disable the Reuben James. Also, there are a couple of issues with this ship. Its registry is that of the Enterprise, NCC 1701. Commodore Ross is wearing the wrong badge, and the background of his bridge was of early 2409. These are simply oversights and limitations of the game, but I'm going to assume that in-universe his very un-Starfleet-like attitude may in fact mean that he's a shapeshifted Davidian or some other miscreant. Still better safe than sorry, so we don't destroy this ship and instead we hail Drozana.
To any ships in range, please, we need help. I don't know what these things are, but they're all over the station. They're killing people. Please, you have to help us.
That sounds like maybe Davidians. Descending upon the system is Driffen's Comet, passing ever closer to the station, its triolic energy ripping the realms asunder and allowing the Davidians through in large quantities. We pull up to see Drozana's station in all its heyday glory. Back in this era it was state-of-the-art and a tempting prize for the Klingons along their border. It's very much in the same style as K7, with some modification and a more robust appearance. Shame to see how much it was decayed over the next few centuries, but nothing lasts forever. Beaming on board, we can see that the triolic waves are intense, with that telltale blacklight effect bathing the station. Tarsi confirms the Davidians are nearby, and without the correct equipment, this station's inhabitants cannot even detect them, let alone fight them off properly. Although at this level of saturation I'm sure the Davidians would be visible anyway. Sure enough, some swarm in at the new arrival of some delicious neural energy, but are in for a surprise when we retaliate with our own phased proton weapons to drive them back. Tarsi alerts us to the next room, a bar, being filled with Spectres too, and a skirmish has erupted between Klingon and Federation officers. Who knows if the fight started before the Davidians got here or not, but we set our weapons to stun just in case anyone gets too rowdy in our direction. We manage to destroy the Davidians as they swarm among the patrons, while we switch to phasers to stun those who attempt to pick a fight with us. There are several armed Starfleet officers here who are also attempting to quell the fray, but they aren't as adept at spotting the Davidians as we are, and few manage to land any real hits. When the room is emptied of the umbral threats, we examine the scene quickly before moving into the adjacent chambers, the area still not yet secure. Opposite where we came in there is a small chamber that contains a shop of various electronic components, and this too is swarming with Davidians. We clear this room before moving back into the bar to check the other connecting corridors. The Davidians were probably converging here due to the large quantity of people for them to feast upon.
Not attempt to stop us. We hunger. We must flee. Leave immediately, or I will amplify the time distortion and destroy this station. You will not survive.
Hey, those things are holed up in the lounge, and they've got some of my customers in there with them. The door is barricaded, but a few hits with a phaser should take care of that. Get my people out of there!
We have no trouble locating the door that the proprietor mentioned, and we are forced to bust it open. Inside are 3 of the spatial rifts that must connect to the 2409 Drozana station, and Davidian arrivals are intermittently pouring through, overseen by a phantasm, which seems to be guiding them. Huddled out of the way in corners and behind pillars are scared patrons and staff. With sustained fire, the phantasm vanishes, presumably dead, but the rifts are still open and allowing more Davidians to enter. This must be where they're coming from. So we turn the proton rifle to the portals and bombard them and the arrivals with its energies, sealing the holes in time. One of the previously captured patrons steps forward to greet us.
Thanks for the help, friend. What were those things? That spirit snuck up on me. I noticed a spike in triadic energy, and I was working to adjust the station's shields to compensate. I went to fetch a hyperspanner, and I was attacked. If you help me, I can finish my repairs before the triadic energy reaches lethal levels. By the way, you can call me Scotty.
We've met already, you know. Oh, no, wait, hang on. For us, freshly recruited as a temporal agent by Daniels, we were sent to the USS Enterprise in the year 2268 to ensure that the Babel conference went as recorded and we exposed some Nakul's subterfuge. Scotty remarked at the time that we had met on Drozana's station before, but we had yet to do that in our own timeline, so this must be the event he was referring to.
And you? The last time I saw you was on Drozana Station. Something went dodgy then, and it's more than a wee bit dodgy now.
Drozana Station? I've never been there.
It's complicated, Scotty.
For him, it was 3 years ago. For us, it had yet to happen. Of course, Temporal Prime Directive means we cannot tell him any of this, but it's somewhat proof that these events we're in now are already part of a consistent timeline, unless I only remember them now because of changes we're making here currently. Right.
Just as I suspected, the trialic energy is increasing. We'll be cooked like a haggis if we don't do something about it. There is a wee store on this station. The lass who runs it, Cassidy, said they might be getting a supply of the new quantum flux regulators. The Mark II versions. If we had one of those regulators, I could modify the flux coordinating sensors and use them to modulate the shields protecting the station. That would buy us some time. Go find Cassidy. She'll know where they are.
Sounds like a plan. There's not much point in destroying the Comet if we lose everyone on the station anyway, so buying us some time to do that is a good idea. We find Cassidy in the electronics shop we cleared out earlier, but she's rather shaken by the event.
What were those things? They were floating, and one looked at me, and I felt so weak. And then it lifted me up, and oh, it was horrible. Oh, are you looking for something from the store? A quantum what? I'm sorry. I'm just too scared right now to think about selling anything. I'm closing down until I get me wits about me. Maybe it would be best if I packed up and went back to Sherman's planet. I don't know.
What can I do to help?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a nerve tonic would soothe me. A nice stiff one, you know. Can you get one for me?
You want a drink? In other circumstances, I'd love to get you one, but right now, really? Fine, if that's what she needs to calm down, let's get the lady a drink. Unfortunately, trying to flag down one of the waitresses doesn't go too well.
Who do you think you are? First the lights go all strange, then these weird creatures show up, and worst of all, you're here picking fights with my best customers. Look at dear, brave, handsome Captain McQueen here. He could have been killed. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Oh yeah, sure, blame the newcomers that turned up just at the same time, why not? Can I have a nerve tonic?
Nerve tonics? How can I think about nerve tonics when my sweet Captain McQueen is injured? Well, if you want to know about any sort of exotic beverage, go ask that drunken Scotsman. Lieutenant Commander Scott. He knows more about alcohol than anyone I've ever met. While you do that, I'm going to make my sweet prince all better.
Let's try the barman.
A nerve tonic? Almost every culture in the galaxy has nerve tonics. Most worlds have multiple variations, and everyone thinks that the one their grandmother made is better than all the rest. Look, I 10 bar at a commerce station in the middle of one of this quadrant's busiest trade routes. It's my job to be able to make anything you want, but you gotta be specific. I could make you 14,647 different nerve tonics, 18,397 if you're bullying. So, what kind do you want?
A quick one.
Tell you what, one of the waitresses should be able to help you narrow down what kind of nerve tonic would be best. Talk to one of them, and then come back. I'm sure we can make exactly what you need.
This is turning into a bigger chore than I expected. Let's just ask Scotty what she'd want. He seems to know her quite well.
Did you get the quantum flux regulator?
Yeah, about that. Cassidy's kind of scatterbrained at the minute and needs a nerve tonic.
Nerve tonics? You don't look like you need one of those. These wee beasties are troublesome, but they're not as bad as a ship full of angry Romulans. Now, I've been known to enjoy an occasional nip of Scotch whiskey. That's the only nerve tonic you'll ever need. Why do you need to know about them?
It's not for me, it's for Cassidy. She can barely remember what her inventory is at the minute.
Oh, for Cassidy. Now that makes sense. She's a bonny lass, that Cassidy, and more than willing to spend a little time with a right Starfleet officer, if you know what I mean. But she hasn't got the stomach for fighting. Is she alright? I hate for anything to happen to her.
She's fine, but apparently we need to get her liquored up so she'll calm down.
Glad to hear it. Sounds like she needs something to take a wee bit of the edge off, and that happens to be one of my specialties, along with transwarp transporter technology and warp field mechanics. Cassidy's been meeting me every evening in the bar for a spot of cheer, but I've never seen her order a nerve tonic. Perhaps if I told you what she likes, you'll be able to figure out the right mix. The bartender will help you.
Now unfolds a rather lengthy discussion on Cassidy and Scotty's drinking preferences, where we have to ascertain what she wants in a drink based on Scotty's observations, then take what we know to the bartender to have a custom drink put together. If you want to skip ahead with this, there'll be a timestamp on the screen, as it does mess with the pace of this mission somewhat in my opinion, but I'll leave the dialogue in so you can listen to it if you like.
The only time I saw Cassidy ordering blood wine was when she was feeling under the weather. Poor lass. She liked that it was served warm, but she hated those blasted heavy metal mugs the Klingons use, and the potency of it was a bit much for her to handle. A girl like Cassidy needs something with a little less kick. Cassie and I got into a drinking contest with a Klingon one night, and we ended up drinking fire wine. It's not as good as Scotch, mind you, but it's better than drinking warp core coolant. The next morning, after she picked herself up off the floor, Cassidy told me that the fire wine was so spicy that she was afraid it had eaten a hole through her stomach. I had to send her to see Bones for a checkup. Also, she said that drinking from those shallow bowls made her feel like someone's pet targ. Cassidy didn't like the salty taste of the Albion brandy, but she really enjoyed the fact that it was garnished with a drop of honey that floated on the top of the drink. Bah, garnish is getting in the way of a fine beverage, if you ask me. Can you imagine putting a wee piece of pineapple in a glass of 20-year-old single malt? It's preposterous. Martinis aren't my cup of tea, as it were, but Cassidy seems to like them. She appreciates that a martini should be served as cold as possible, but since she nurses her drinks, the cold tends to dissipate, and she doesn't get the full effect. She's quite fond of those fancy stem glasses, though. Cassidy really likes her Sumerian sunsets, mostly because of the sour taste. She hates that the drink is so weak, and has been trying to convince the bartender to add garnish to it, to make the happy feeling last longer. But he won't, because then it wouldn't be a Sumerian sunset. Me, I say a drink is a drink. If the lady wants a garnish, give her one. Soleil Bry Cassidy didn't need me in mead a few nights ago. Ugh, terribly sweet stuff, like drinking syrup. Cassie didn't like the cloying sweetness, and the wee bird broke out into highs because she was allergic to the fruit garnish. I'm not ordering any of that stuff again. Cassidy really likes the little pick-me-up of a drop of Skagarian whiskey, but she doesn't like the wee shot glasses or the silly paper umbrellas. Who ever heard of putting a wee paper umbrella in a glass of whiskey? It's sacrilege. If I ever go to Skagara, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind.
When we've learned this woman's tastes better than our own, we can report to the bartender to make the perfect concoction.
What can I get you? I'll need some more details before I can make a drink for you. If you need help figuring out what combination of ingredients you want, you should talk to one of the waitresses. That's what they're here for, after all. So, do you want it to be hot or cold?
She strangely has a preference for hot drinks.
What kind of flavor profile are you looking for?
Sour, apparently.
How strong do you want this drink to be?
Give it a bit of a kick, but not enough to knock you on your ass.
How would you like this drink to be served?
In a tall stemmed glass.
And last but certainly not least, what kind of garnish would you like?
Something sweet like honey.
This should be all the info I need. I'll put the drink on the bar when I'm done. I'll put the bill on your tab.
Oh, no, you bloody won't. When we've got it all together, we give it to her and see her reaction.
Do you have a drink for me? Oh, I love warm drinks. They're so relaxing. Oh, there's a lovely sour note to this drink. I feel so refreshed. Oh, there's just enough oomph to this drink to make it really stick with ya. I like that. Oh, I love the style of this glass. It accentuates the flavor of the ingredients. Honey! No, not you. The drink. Oh, that little bit of sweetness is just perfect. It adds the most delightful note to each sip.
I feel like I don't even want to brag that I got this right the first time.
That is marvelous. Oh, I'm feeling much better now, thank you. Alrighty, what tool was it you needed? Oh, a quantum flux regulator Mark II. I have one of those right here. Please, take it as a thank you. Cheers.
Really? Was it that hard to... You know what? We've got it now. Let's just get it back to Scotty so we can save the lives of everybody on this station. In 2 time frames.
The right tool for the right job. I'll start making the adjustments, but I don't know if I've got enough time. You can't change the laws of physics. The triolic energy levels keep rising, and sensors show the blasted Comet is to blame. Modulating the shields is not going to be enough. Something needs to be done about that Comet if we're going to live to see the morning.
Fortunately now, with Scotty's temporary defences in place, we've probably got enough time to destroy Driffen's Comet. So with everything done here, we can return to the Daring. Right, set course to intercept the oh, now what? As the triolic energy even tints the ambience of space, Tarsi reports that a small wing of Klingon ships has entered the system and is approaching the Daring, which is still disguised as a D7.
A ship from the House of Duras! I am Captain Bavat, son of Warat, and leader of my house. My brother died due to Duras' treachery. I will avenge his death with the destruction of 100 Duras ships. Prepare to die!
Remind me to have words with Drake if we can find him about his lack of cultural understanding of 23rd century Klingons. This is the same Bavat that goes on to be involved in the Temporal Cold War and tried to escalate the Klingon Federation War earlier of this in-game year, 2409. Long story short, we can't kill him here. But again, we're in a 25th century vessel that can easily take the hits of the older D7s he's flying, even if one is his house's flagship, the IKS Kulf. We easily disable his escorts, but our mission is to destroy Driffen's Comet, not alter the timeline by bringing down the House of Bavat centuries too early. To buy us some more time, we try to break the line of sight between us and him by putting Drozana between us and making an attack run on the Comet instead. However, Bavat is persistent and calls for reinforcements from his forces, which continually arrive to help try to destroy us. It's not successful, and he probably thinks that House Duras have stumbled across some sort of powerful weapon, with how well we are holding up against his attack. As we pelt the Comet, it becomes apparent why we needed to bring the Daring back. Whatever it's made from, this tumbling triolic terror can sure take a pounding. And Bavat continues his attempts to stop us, but our shields easily hold from his attacks. I'm sure he's feeling rather insulted about literally being ignored for a chunk of rock and ice. Kapla! I mean, success! It looks like we've destroyed the Comet. Unfortunately, it's merely broken up into 3 smaller fragments, which we still have to take care of, and more Klingon reinforcements have entered the system to join Bavat. We weather his attacks for as long as we can, focusing on the Comet, but soon sheer numbers begin to overwhelm our shielding and we're forced to change tactics. We make a run for it, trying to seem as if we're fleeing the system, and Bavat's fleet gives chase. Once we've exited disruptor range, we turn, reroute power to engines and shields, and prepare to dump superheated plasma down the throats of our pursuers to stall their impulse engines, before making a dash back to the Driffen's Comet shards. The move does buy us some time, and I bet the Klingons are super confused as to our weird actions. Well, it's a mystery Bavat's just going to have to live with. However, they still don't give up, and we're eventually forced to halt our task in order to more permanently deal with our pursuers. I'd rather avoid conflict altogether, but that's not seemingly going to be possible, but in such a superior vessel, we can afford to hold back and pull our punches a bit and only disable our opponents. With a final burst of photon torpedoes, we obliterate the Comet, but there's not time to celebrate yet. Our dedication to the task has allowed Bavat to summon quite the armada to oppose us. We have no choice now but to disable as many ships as we can so they cannot attempt to follow us home. However, that method is to be accomplished, presumably via slingshot again, and the longer this drags on, the bigger our ripples in time will get. We managed to disable all of Pavat's forces. It would be a little unfair, but I would like my log to reflect how much I tried to avoid combat. We leave House Pavat ships floating in space making their repairs, yet the IKS Kuv limps after us, its engines aflame and numerous hull breaches. They should really stop and take care of their vessel, or it's going to explode. Still not giving up? Fine, fire a couple of other warning shots, but try not to blow it up. Oh, he's not stopping. He's not stopping! Ooh, I'm sure that was meant to be a sort of heroic last act on their part, but yeah, my shields are completely restored by that stage, and I've got 200 years of technology on these guys.
If you are receiving this message, then you and your crew have completed your mission. Driffen's Comet is destroyed, and the Davidians are no longer a threat to the Federation. You've done well. And to prove that I'm not the immoral monster that some make me out to be, I'm going to help you. When you last docked at Deep Space K7, I had some modifications made to your vessel. One of those is the addition of a Borg temporal node salvaged from a cube in the Batron cluster. It's set to return you to our time. Congratulations on a job well done. Drake out.
Wait, this guy got agents aboard my ship at K7 and managed to... Hang on, what's happening? Did anyone push anything? No one pushed anything? Great. Drake must have been watching, because as soon as we arrive back in the 25th century...
Excellent work. I knew I could count on you. The disappearance of Driffen's Comet in the 23rd century will be a scientific curiosity. I have taken steps to suppress information that might reveal our involvement, and I trust that you and your crew will refrain from telling stories about what happened here. After all, we're getting along so well. One thing I hope you'll take away from all this is that any opinion you may have of the immorality of so-called rogue elements like Section 31 is a bit naive. Contrary to popular opinion among some Starfleet officers, we do not spend our days plotting evil and committing random acts of villainy like characters in a bad holo novel. We protect the Federation from threats. Thanks to you, the Davidians are no longer on that list. If you think about it, everything we do is to preserve the freedoms you so enjoy. You should be grateful. Drake out.
Although things got done here a lot faster than usual, the blasé use of time travel to solve this raises alarming concerns. Also, how many other threats have been taken down behind the scenes using such methodology? It's a troubling concept. What do you think of Section 31's actions here? Either way, with the completion of that mission, that ends our commitment to them, and we'll be free to report back to Admiral Quinn and tell him that the Donatu sector is secure once more. If we return to Drozana Station, there are still occasional spikes in Triolic activity, however. It looks like perhaps there may still be traces left. After all, Driffen's Comet was also infused with chronoton particles, signs of time travel, so it's possible its effects superseded its destruction in some fashion. But at least we're aware of it now, and it cannot escalate. On a brighter note, I have recently received word that the USS Armiger has completed its maintenance and we are free to return to it. Our new assignment will be capitalising in the Romulan Republic's discovery of some Day 1 ruins on their new homeworld. So that will be our next assignment, chronologically. As for the story series, we're returning to the year 2410 for the next part, in the aftermath of the Vardois-Kabali conflict and a return to the Delta Alliance and its operations. So thank you for watching this ever-expanding narrative of Star Trek Online, as we conclude the side missions with a visit to Captain Harry Kim, who has a rather disturbing discovery ahead of him. Until then, thanks for watching the story series. I've been Rick, and I hope to see you again for the next part. Goodbye.